Tonight on Joynews Prime, Ghana's COVID-19 death toll now at 66, following the passing of 8 patients as of June 15. 4 out of the 8 new deaths are as young as 30. Meanwhile, a 3-month-old baby could not survive the coronavirus in the northern region. According to doctors, she was referred to the Tamale Teaching Hospital.
The third death was a 3-month-old baby who was referred from Savlugu Hospital and came in very breathless.
Also here on Joynews Prime, a security expert, Professor Kwesi in questions government's refusal to sign a roadmap fashioned out by the National Peace Council to deal with the threat of party militia.
Well, if government does not send you a document, then the document is not worth the paper it has been signed on. And that truly, if the initiator of the process itself is unwilling to sign, I would have thought that government would have signed first to indicate its willingness as the stronger party.
And later in business, Ghana's economy grows by 4.9% in the first quarter of 2020. But economist Courage Boti projects slow growth rate due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, 2 suspected incidents of rape and murder of women within 1 month at Kubiase in the Jusi municipality of the Ashanti region leaves residents in the area with fear and rage.
Yeah.
It was her turn to sweep, but she was still asleep. So I went to check on her in her room and realized she was stiff and not responding to my calls.
My name is Ernest. Joynews Prime is coming to you live from our studios here at Kukumlemle in Accra on digital address GA09925539. We are also free to air on your digital terrestrial TV, and this bulletin is also live on DSTV, channel 421, GoTV 144. We are streaming live on YouTube and all our social media channels. Please stay with us. Let's settle for the details now. COVID-19 deaths in Ghana is now 66 following the passing of 8 patients as of June 15. 4 out of the 8 new deaths are in their 30s. 6 of the cases are from the Ashanti region, with 2 from the Greater Accra region. We have details of the mortalities on your screen. We have 397 new cases that have been recorded. The active cases now stands at 8,114 and recoveries at 4,410. And if you look on your screens, we have a 59-year-old female who died with comorbidity of diabetes in the Ashanti region. We also have one who was 69, a male, also dying with diabetes and hypertension. And then we have one with sickle cell as well, 62-year-old female, also dying there. There's one with hypertension, and also there are 2 others who have no comorbidities at all. They were not showing symptoms at all, but died of COVID-19. That is the latest as far as the death toll is concerned. We also have those who are critically ill, and in severe condition, 4 and 2 on ventilators. We have 5 at the UGMC, 3 at the Ga East. In terms of the severe cases, Kolebu has 3. We also have Konfanoche with 2, 1 in Ho, 1 at the police hospital. So 13 severe cases and 4 critical with 2 on ventilators. And of course, our new cases now 397, bringing us to in excess of 12,500. Of course, the total case count now is 12,590. That is the situation as far as COVID-19 is concerned in the country. Meanwhile, a 3-month-old baby among the COVID-19 deaths recorded in the northern region. The baby was referred to the Tamale Teaching Hospital, according to health officials. The 2 others are a 24-year-old woman who was also referred from Bolga to the Tamale Teaching Hospital, and an 80-year-old woman who died about 2 months ago. The northern region now has a total of 52 COVID-19 cases with 32 recoveries. The region's active cases are 17 with no critical cases. Now, speaking at a briefing in Tamale, the Northern Regional Director of Health Service, Dr. John Beston Eliza, said all active cases are being managed at home.
As we speak, we now have accumulated cases of 52 COVID-19 cases. We've had a total of 3 deaths. We have 32 recoveries. We've not had any critical case. And as we speak, we have 17 active cases, all being managed at home. Let me quickly add as the details of the deaths. There are 3 deaths. One is the 80-year-old lady who died somewhere in May and at the Central Hospital. Just last week, we had 2 additional deaths. A 24-year-old lady who was actually referred from Bolga in the Upper East to TTH. She spent just 6 hours, an hour on arrival, and then passed. But because of the era in which we are, the high index of suspicion made the staff to take a sample, and the sample came out later as being positive. The 3rd death was a 3-month-old baby who was referred from Savlugu Hospital and came in very breathless and this and that. Again, sample was taken, and he also didn't last that. He virtually died on the Arava, almost died on Arava, and so the sample was taken before that, and it also turned out to be positive for COVID.
Now, Dr. Beth Sewa is an adjunct assistant professor of medicine at the Nebraska Medical Center in the U.S. She joins us via Zoom for some analysis on this very sad story there, madam. We told about the 3-year-old baby losing her life, losing the fight against COVID-19. Our death toll and the demographics is becoming a major concern. What do you make of the situation from where you sit as an expert?
Thank you for having me on your program, and good evening to your audience. I think that once you start having death in babies and this degree of spread, with what I can observe from afar to be about 300 cases almost on a daily basis, it is a pointer to the extent of community spread that we have right now. And it means that certain measures must be enforced or put into place. I know that some have said, you know, maybe we're testing more and that's why we're finding more cases. But here's the analogy I like to make. It's a very simple one that if you take a very rich person and they don't tell you they're rich, let's say they have 12 bank accounts. The fact that you are discovering their bank accounts does not make them rich. They were rich because they already had the bank account. So let's take the accounts to be cases. So if we say that we're finding the cases because, and that's what's accounting for our numbers, that's not exactly accurate, because if somebody has nothing in their bank accounts, you can find 1,000 of them and you will still have nothing. So in reality, we're actually finding these cases because there are more. And there's essentially about 3 things we need to do. One is the personal protection and distancing and putting on of masks. And we need to continue to find the cases and isolate them, because the less we find the cases, the more the asymptomatic people will be spreading to others. And of course, we have to continue our public health measures like churches not being open, schools being closed. But it looks like at this point, that is rather the new phase we are entering into. And places like China, where in Beijing, they're now enforcing some lockdowns, tell us that we need to rethink whether some places really need to go on lockdown.
And do you agree with those who are already saying that perhaps we should call that already? We should have some form of localized lockdowns because of the increasing cases we are seeing in some parts of the region, especially the Ashanti, the northern regions, like we're seeing now in Beijing, where, you know, some parts of the city is going, or the province is going under lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what we need to do, especially if we can identify the hotspots, because Beijing actually, as of this morning, they only had 106 cases in that market, but to them 106 is way too much, and so they're enforcing lockdown and doing what they can because they cannot afford to be another epicenter. So that is the attitude we ought to have. And like I've always said in the past, with COVID-19, you have to overreact to actually be on time. In other words, you have to be proactive instead of reactive. At this point, we're in a reactive mode. It means we're waiting till we have a lot of cases before we ask, okay, oops, what do we do? Rather, we should be proactive and determine that, you know what, in a month or two, this is what we're going to have. And so these are the measures we need to put in place.
Now, I want us to look at the issue of treatment. In the northern region, all active cases, we are told, are being treated from home, despite the rising death toll and also the evidence that suggests that people who are in the treatment centers recover quickly and respond to treatment as compared to those at home. Will this strategy work for us?
Yes, in a lot of situations, that is what it has to be, because at this point, we know that a lot of our cases do not have severe symptoms. Okay. If there was a magic wand that will let you know which patients will progress to that severe case, then we could do that. So unfortunately, some people would have to be nursed at home, but then there has to be good communication, because from day 8 to 10, those who would get really ill develop what we call the cytokine storm, and sometimes it happens rapidly within hours and they can die. So the magic would be being able to communicate with these people who are at home so that we can pick out the ones who would go on to develop the severe illness that will require hospitalization, because it might not be practical to keep all these patients in the hospital. And I think that's what is happening in some of our hospitals in Greater Accra, where they're complaining, or even in Kumasi, Kompanochi, where we're complaining that the treatment centers are getting full. So
Absolutely.
If people are not severely ill, it's okay for them to go home, so long as we know the home condition is such that they're not going to spread more disease to the people at home.
And I guess that is where the challenge is. Meanwhile, 97 health officials in the Ashanti region alone have been infected. As of Friday, when I spoke to the GMA, the national figure was 70. In the Ashanti region today, we are being told that 97. I mean, what should we be doing as far as the treatment and the protection of our healthcare workers, the front line, is concerned, so we can avert a crisis situation at the hospitals?
As of this morning, I was hearing that some of the Nigerian doctors have laid down their tools, saying they need personal protective equipment. And so we need to make sure that these healthcare workers have all that they need to take care of themselves. And from what I've seen, it looks like Ghana is doing a fairly good job in terms of the kind of outfit that the healthcare workers put on to take care of the infected patients. And so these need to be available. And secondly, we need to re-educate some people. Maybe people have forgotten the protocols they need to put in place. And then the other thing too is, as of a few weeks ago, a lot of the healthcare workers who had fallen ill were not those in the treatment centers, because they know the procedures, they know what to do. So we need to educate all healthcare workers, even in clinics that we're not sure they will be exposed to COVID-19, because if we're hitting 13,000 cases, it means a lot of patients will present in settings where we don't even expect them to have COVID-19, but they may be exposing the healthcare workers.
And just a quick one on that in just 1 minute, because we're running out of time on this interview. On testing, should we be doing mass testing now, targeting, even if it's in phases? Should we be doing that?
Yeah, I understood that that's what we're doing in addition to the enhanced contact tracing and testing, my understanding was that we were doing mass testing, and I could be wrong.
We're actually not doing that, but I want to thank you very much for your time here on Joynews Prime. That's Dr. Bertha Sewai with the Nebraska Medical Center in the U.S. She is an adjunct professor of medicine. Thank you very much for your time. Now, the Ghana Health Service has also responded to a number of issues raised by Occupy Ghana. In a statement yesterday, we spoke to Kweku Sedbefia, who threw more light on the issues that they think that the Ghana Health Service must respond to. They have done so, and my colleague Gifty and Pia has been going through the statement released by the Ghana Health Service. Gifty, let's start with the issue of the case count and what the Ghana Health Service has to say in response to the claim of figures being massaged.
Kojo, so essentially, let me just tell you how they describe the concerns raised by Occupy Ghana. They describe it as, unfortunately, they describe it as something that seeks to impugn the professional integrity of health workers who are managing the pandemic. They say that they would have wished that Occupy Ghana rather genuinely sought explanations to get better understanding of what is being done by the health sector. So in terms of case count, they talk about cumulative count and the fact that it cannot decline. They say that what should be of concern are the daily reported new cases. They go on to indicate that the isolated spikes in local, or what's happening is just isolated spikes in localized institutions and localities and does not represent generalized diffused community spread. And then they go on to say that it is worth noting that in the last 1 week, 3 regions and 176 districts out of the 260 districts have not reported any new cases. So
let's touch on the issue of bed and space. Occupy Ghana did raise an issue that the facilities are being overstretched. What is the Ghana Health Service's response to that?
Well, in terms of bed and space, they say that we have never, and I'm quoting from the document itself, they say we have never exceeded our bed capacity as a country. We started this process with 450 bed capacity, which has increased to 700. It goes on to say that at the moment, we have 71 treatment centers across the country, and 21 of them are idle. That's what the Ghana Health Service is saying. And then they continue to say that they're working with the regions to increase the bed capacity for moderate to severe critical cases. They give an example, and they say that the 12-bed COVID-19 ICU wing that is coming up at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital is part of the efforts they are making to expand our ability to host people who need to be at the treatment centers. And they say that the largest isolation center that is used for those who are largely asymptomatic is the Pentecost Convention Center. As of 16th June, which is yesterday, they say that they had 356 inpatients, and the center has never operated at maximum capacity.
And that is very interesting, considering the news that is coming in from the Ashanti region today about the facilities being full and the health directorate in the region asking people to help them in terms of isolation centers and space to be able to admit people for treatment and also isolation. Gifty, thank you very much for bringing us portions of that statement by the Ghana Health Service. Now, government is asking every Ghanaian to take personal responsibility in the country's quest to halt the spread of COVID-19 infections. So far, more than 12,000 persons have been infected and 66 have died. But as the country moves to a critical phase of the fight against the virus, Deputy Health Minister Dr. Bernard Okoboy has been relaying Ghanaians to do their little to support government in the effort to fight COVID-19. He's been speaking to journalists at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital when the Chinese community in Ghana donated ventilators and other COVID-19 logistics to the facility.
Remember, nobody can be in a room for more than 1 year on lockdown. So every germ, whether bacteria or virus, when we have it discovered, people are asked to slow down and stay at home once the virus or bacteria is studied. Once you have knowledge about how it moves, then you can go back to your life, but with precautions. And excuse me, that's why we've not told anybody to buy a condom with SARS-CoV-2, because we know it's not about, that's not a transmission. It is through droplets. And so once we've given you education, that becomes your what's the word? Your tools for staying alive. And government alone cannot be the one who would ensure you stay safe. You also have a responsibility. In fact, your responsibility is more potent because it is at your discretion and your control.
You're watching Joynews Prime with me, Anna Smith. We're taking a break. When we return, we'll bring you more COVID-19 cases, especially from the Ashanti region, plus the latest in business. Stay with us.
Hello, good evening. My name is Sandra S. and I'm coming to you from home, and let's do the business news. In our first story tonight, Ghana's economy grew by 4.9% in the first quarter of 2020 compared to a growth rate of 6% the same period in 2019. The latest data from the Ghana Statistical Service says it was anchored on the services sector of 9.5%, and economists with Data Bank, Courage Booty, has been reacting to these figures.
We're also seeing the impact of lower oil prices that came as a result of these COVID issues also probably playing a part, and its full impact is not even reflected in there yet. So we can say that the industrial sector is looking like because of the issues we've had with tallow and the major, and Ghana's major oil field for the quarter. You look at the services sector and you see the major driver there has been ICT, a whopping 77.4% growth in that sector. And that is actually the orientation the whole country is turning into now, an ICT-driven economy. And given that a lot of people have had to work from home during the COVID season, you could even expect more, sterling performance from that sector, going into the second and third quarters of the year, because that is where everybody seems to be, driving towards now.
So I was going to ask, which is my final question to you tonight, I was going to ask, since the COVID started at the latter part of the third month of the year, what's the outlook going to be in the next quarter? Do you expect a grimmer outlook?
Expecting slower growth, and the impact should hit, especially in the second quarter, because if you remember, it was in April that we went on a 3-week lockdown. Major cities in Ghana, the Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi area, and that is the economic hub really of the country. So with the lockdown and its associated slowdown in productivity, we should expect a widespread contraction across some sectors, which may ultimately recover. It should be a positive growth in the end, but very slim growth, I think.
We still stay on the coronavirus pandemic, and the Trades Union Congress, TUC, has submitted a report to government asking for the establishment of a labor insurance fund, which they believe would anchor jobs during future disasters. Speaking on the preliminary report, the Director of Research and Policy Institutes of the TUC, Kwabena Nyago, stated that government must prepare now towards a future to avert the current situation we are experiencing.
We were also proposing workers' compensation insurance scheme, something like unemployment insurance, in which both workers and employers will contribute, so that if the next pandemic or crisis hits, we could fall on that fund to be able to pay workers something and not just throw them onto the streets. Like I said, it's similar to the unemployment insurance, but you know that in Europe, unemployment insurance was actually started by the unions. It was later taken over by government. But even in Scandinavia, governments still do unemployment insurance through the unions. It's one of the reasons why Scandinavia still has a very high unionization rate, because they are actually deeply involved in the unemployment insurance. We were also proposing a social grant for households that are actually in the lowest quantile, the poor households. So you give them the equivalent of our poverty line, which is about 140 Ghana cedis per month. So that's a social grant. They do it in South Africa, or they are doing it as part of the COVID lockdown. You cannot lock people down into their house without giving them something. So in South Africa, they implemented a social grant for poor households. Now, the reason why we are proposing that you don't have to sack your workers is simple. If you sack your worker and he goes to sit home, he may die before the crisis is over because he has no income. Now, when the crisis is over and he doesn't die, the process of coming back to the same workers may not be smooth.
In more news tonight, a $20 million soybean cultivation project has been commissioned at Sape community in the Moi district of the northern region. The 40,000-acre farm is said to be one of the biggest in the region. Correspondent Martina Bubri has more.
The project is to increase domestic food production to address the major vulnerabilities in Ghana's food supply chain that has been further disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and also to offer employment to about 400 people in the area. At the launch, some farmers who spoke to Joynews said the project will address the loophole in the price and value chain of soya bean. Madam Abiba said it will also help them farm soya bean in large quantities.
It will help us increase our farming, and we will sell it directly to you and make more profit. We will not sell it to the market women again.
The project coordinator in the community, Ganiu Osman, believes the project will succeed and farmers will benefit immensely.
And the reason why we give this largest farm to the gold company, we are here, we cannot get support to do largest like how the gold company did. And this one, we are committed people, we are praying to Almighty Allah to support them so that the community can benefit through this farm.
The Chief Executive Officer of GGF, George Boachi Sapon, said they decided to invest in the project, especially in the northern region, because of the suitable climatic condition of the area and the vast arable land.
I've traveled every part of this country and have identified that there are huge lands here that are arable and suitable. Again, the climatic and the soil condition is very good for the crops that we are doing, mainly maize and soybean.
And that will be all for the first part of business. Ernest, over to you in the studio. It feels a bit weird though.
It definitely must feel weird. We'll talk about the experience later, but great presentations.
Right.
What should you expect in the second half when you join us?
Well, in the second part of business, we'll be going to the Tema Port. There's been a standoff at the Tema Port over disputes over who should handle container vessel businesses at the port. We'll be having an interaction with them later when I come back after 8 p.m. Ernest.
Thank you very much, Sandra. That's my colleague Sandra Esnawapenu bringing us business from home. You're watching Joynews Prime with me, Ernest Mini. Let's bring you more stories on COVID-19. Health authorities in the Ashanti region warn of increased COVID-19 infection due to the growing public apathy to the preventive protocols. Regional Health Director Dr. Imam describes the open disregard for preventive measures as worrying. The region has so far recorded 2,405 COVID-19 positive cases and 38 deaths. 97 health workers, including the late medical director of the Kwadaso SDA Hospital, Dr. Harry Osubuaten, have fallen victim. My colleague Ohemen Teria has more in the following report.
18 of the health professionals who have contracted COVID-19 are medical officers, with a whopping 47 being nursing officers. Midwives, disease control officers and others have also been infected. It comes as the Health Directorate struggles to expand treatment centers in the region. Dr. Emmanuel Tinkran announced at a media briefing 2 treatment centers at Konfanoche and Kumasi South hospitals are already full.
All the treatment centers are now full. Konfanoche has 18 beds. The 18 beds are now full. Kumasi South have 20 beds. So as at now, we have a total of 38 beds. All the 38 beds are now full. We are going to expand Kumasi South from existing 20 beds to 41 beds. As at now, we've been given another ward. Work is rapidly ongoing to make sure that we expand it. We've also secured 7 beds at Central Hospital to support our treatment facilities. And we are also negotiating with one of our senior doctors who has decided to give us his hospital to be used as a treatment center. We hope that we can add about 100 beds to the treatment centers that we have to make sure that it will be up to about 138 beds. Because the numbers that we have here and the number of cases that we are getting, it's said that we cannot contain it.
Amid the concerns, residents continue to openly ignore preventive protocols on COVID-19. Dr. Tinkran observed Veronica buckets, which were common in the recent past for hand washing, for instance, have disappeared. Wearing of face masks and social distancing protocols are breached with reckless abandon. The regional director says the development is recipe for disaster in COVID-19 management.
You feel so disheartened because people don't want to adhere to the protocols and then the guidelines. Now we don't see the Veronica buckets anywhere. The social distancing protocol, nobody is observing it. You tell people to wear face masks and they are insulting you. With this, we can't fight COVID-19. People get conditioned, we want to support them, they fight with us. How can we fight COVID-19 in this situation? The buck starts with you. The president has instructed that we enforce it. This morning, I went around looking whether people will adhere to what the president said. Some of them, they've disregarded what the president said. They are still walking around without their face mask. They are not observing the social distancing. So what do you want us to do? Because right now, you know we've lost a doctor, a hard-working doctor. And if it's to continue this way, what will happen? We are going to lose more. The facilities that we have in Ashanti region, as far as case management is concerned, is nothing to write home about. Ashanti, apart from Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, we don't have any facility that we can say can manage severe and critically ill. And that means that if we continue in this direction, we will see high mortalities.
Checks by the news team on the streets revealed traders, especially in the central business district of Edum, wore no face mask. At the Ghana Revenue Authority premises, many had gathered in their numbers in the name of registering for tax identification numbers. Dr. Tinkran says the Health Directorate is seeking the support of the Regional Security Council for intensified enforcement.
Regional Minister came out with even a guideline on nose mask, that those without nose mask should be arrested by the police and then they'll be given some manual job to do. The human rights people came in. And one thing is that these people are just distractors. They came in and said, oh, it's against basic human rights. The death of a doctor, is it more against human rights than that person who is not wearing face mask? I was the regional minister yesterday. He has said it, that we will have to make sure that we enforce the law.
From Kumasi, Ohime Teria reporting.
The Deputy Minister of Health has also been responding to concerns by doctors at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital about the lack of space to treat COVID-19 patients. He says the country's treatment capacity is being expanded to meet the increasing caseload.
Kumasi, if you have a COVID case that is critical, they are handled at Konfanochi and one or two designated places. What the doctors are asking for is a GAITS-like facility, a facility completely dedicated to COVID cases, like the way we have in GAIST. And 2 hospitals are being considered. The Bekwai Hospital, which is just near completion, about 98 or 95%, and also the military hospital in the Ashanti region. So the ministry is working with the Ministry of Finance to make sure that we get the resources and quickly make them facilities that will be available for COVID. There are lessons we have to learn from this. The first lesson is that there is spread in the community, and so all of us must take the precautions very seriously. And most of the cases we are seeing are people with serious comorbidities, people who are cancer patients, some HIV patients, kidney patients, who come in coughing or having fever and then you realize they have COVID. When you have all these conditions already and COVID sets in, the risk of mortality or death is even higher. And so for us, the lesson is that there is the virus in the community, just as there is HIV virus in the community. I say it all the time that there are at least 500,000 people in Ghana living with HIV. But we still go out and are not fearful because we've been taught how to reduce your risk of getting the HIV disease through abstinence, being faithful, condom use. The same way we have taught you how to be safe, even with this virus also in the population.
Now, the Blood Service is proposing the use of blood plasma to help in the treatment of COVID-19 cases. Yesterday, we heard about dexamethasone and the magic it is performing as far as the treatment of severe COVID-19 cases is concerned. But how would this work? Dr. Justine Ansah is the CEO of the Blood Service. She joins us via Zoom. Madam, thank you very much for your time here on Joynews Prime. Blood plasma, how does this work? Help us understand.
Okay, just to introduce the topic. Convalescent plasma for the use of for COVID-19 severely affected patients was actually included in the list of therapies for COVID-19 by the Ministry of Health last month.
Okay.
So as a result of countries being across the world adopting the therapy. So being a blood product, because plasma is the liquid portion of blood, the Blood Service has to take the lead. So together with the treatment team, we collaborated and came up with a national protocol, which went through the Food and Drugs Authority and has been actually approved. So what we have doing now is we submitted a budget to the ministry. It's gone to the World Bank for no objection, and then we'll start collecting. So what is convalescent plasma therapy? It is a passive antibody therapy. And what this means is that people who have recovered from from COVID-19, okay, have neutralizing antibodies in their body. That is what helped them to fight the disease because they had a robust immune system. So this antibodies stay in the body, in their bodies, those who are recovered for a while, and this one is collected, can be used, collected, tested, processed, can be used to treat severely affected, severely ill or critically ill COVID-19 patients. Because they do not have an immune system which is robust, that is why they are sick. So these antibodies are introduced to them, and then it helps them boost their immune system, and most of them, it reduces mortality as well as reducing hospitality. So so the convalescent plasma is the liquid portion of blood and is collected. For them, this convalescent plasma is antibody-rich, antibody which is neutralizing to the COVID-19 virus.
And you mentioned that it's being tried elsewhere. What has been the success rate of this?
It's countries are reporting significant success rates. In US and UK and Italy and all the rest, I mean, where they had really affected cases, this is being used whilst we look for a vaccine. So it is a passive therapy. Whilst a vaccine is an active, it stimulates your own immune system to produce antibodies. What the passive therapy does is that you are being helped with antibodies from somebody who has recovered. And it has the reported significant success rates in countries. In Africa, Mauritius is started, South Africa is doing some research. And also we think that we are ready to start because we have the machine, we have the ability to do that. So we'll collect the plasma, we will test, screen, and then get it processed and sent to the clinical team who would use that. And in our national protocols, we do have all the guidelines, stringent, to select the donors as well as the patients who would use them.
Very interesting, Madam. Thank you very much for joining us here on Joynews Prime. Dr. Justine Ansah is the CEO of the Blood Service, and we'll be following that very closely. Once they have the necessary funding to implement this, as she indicated, we'll bring you up to date on that. You're watching Joynews Prime with me, Anas Mini. We're taking a short break. When we return, we'll bring you sports. Please stay. Time now for the latest in sports, and Oreku Amfufo joins us from home with details. Hello, Oreku, take it away.
Hi, so it's time for sports, as you did mention, and we do start off from the local scene where former Black Stars coach Kwesi Appiah has said that he is being treated in a way no white coach in Africa would be treated, as he awaits his salary arrears totaling nearly up to $200,000 from his time in charge of Ghana. Now, Appiah's second charge in his time during the Black Stars ended earlier this year. And the Ministry of Youth and Sports did also state last month that his payments would come soon, blaming the delay on the coronavirus. But Appiah, who is owed 5 months' worth of salary, is saying that the money has been owed since August 2019, when there was no COVID-19. So he goes on to ask, will they owe a white coach for 11 months? And the 59-year-old, who previously said that he feels disrespected by the way his case is being handled, says that he is owed exactly $185,000, most of which covers his salary. And Appiah also mentions that Avram Grant was not owed for more than a month when his contract ended. Appiah then goes on to mention that he wants this practice of late payments to end for good. And he was quoted saying that it's not right and should not be encouraged, irrespective of whether the coach is local or foreign. But we'll be getting more details on that. The GFA has said that the Ministry of Youth and Sports will handle that, and then the Ministry of Youth and Sports said that they will take care of that as well. But speaking of the GFA, there have been the reports today. Earlier we did know that the date set for the decision on whether the Ghana Premier League would continue was 30th June. But early this morning, there were some news, making rounds that the Executive Council met yesterday in a Zoom meeting and decided that the league should be cancelled. However, the Ghana Football Association, put out a statement denying that media report, and as I said, that the association has cancelled its current football season. The media report earlier today indicated that the Executive Council of the football governing body in the country unanimously voted for the cancellation of the campaign on Tuesday. However, the GFA statement described that the reports as fake news, a false, malicious publication intended to injure the reputation of the Ghana Football Association. The publication, the FSA, is calculated to deliberately cause confusion and disdain among the members of the association, sponsors, players, club owners, and stakeholders. The football governing body also insisted that a decision in relation to the future of the current football season would be taken on June 30th. But before we do go, there are some big matches, of course, being played today in the Coppa Italia, and that's currently between Napoli and Juventus. It's stuck at 0-0, and Pep Guardiola's Man City are also playing Mikel Arteta's Arsenal in the Premier League, which returned today. That also sits at 0-0. And I'll be back with the second segment of sports to also provide you with live updates of the score and more sports stories. My name is Oreku Amfufo.
Sports, we're taking a break. We'll be back. Two suspected incidents of rape and murder of women within 1 month at Kubasi in the Jesse municipality of the Ashanti region has left residents in fear and rage. In the second and recent case, 24-year-old trader Abna in Tiwa was found dead and half naked in her bedroom Monday morning. It comes after another woman was allegedly raped in her bedroom by unknown assailants. Nana Senso Mensah has the rest of the story. Well, we'll bring that story to you later, but let's do some politics. Now, the security expert at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Professor Kwesi Enin, has questioned government's refusal to sign the detailed roadmap fashioned out by the National Peace Council to deal with the threat of party militia. Professor Enin observed that apart from government's inability to sign, it will be near impossible for the Peace Council to ensure strict compliance with the critical actors who have assented to the documents. We'll hear from the Peace Council from him shortly, but first, his comments come on the back of an event organized today to get the opposition NDC to sign the document.
We do not see commitment on the part of government, especially the president. But we want the president to demonstrate his commitment to this piece, because it is not just about a piece of legislation that is passed by Parliament. There has been a lot of legislation that is passed by Parliament which are just lying there without any implementation. And we don't want the Vigilantism and Other Related Offences Act to follow suit, because the peace of this country is so fragile, and any little thing that we do can undermine the atmosphere that we are all enjoying now. The signs are very, very clear.
Right. So, the argument is that with all these reservations that you cited, were you coerced into signing this document?
Nobody has coerced us into signing. What we are saying is that we are signing it, but we are signing it and we are making a statement that the signing means that we are committed to peace and we are committed to the roadmap. But since it takes other stakeholders to realize the objective for what we have signed, we want to bring this, our protest to the fore. And we have told the National Peace Council, and we have written to them, we have indicated all of this to them.
How soon do you expect them?
And we are saying that we didn't want a situation where it is being misinterpreted, that our non-signing of the Vigilantism Act means that we are interested in vigilantism. We wanted a very holistic approach, a comprehensive approach to the fight against vigilantism. And we did not get it. But we believe that a journey of 1,000 kilometers begins with a step.
22 deliverables. How soon do you expect the National Peace Council to execute or implement the recommendations?
We are so close to the election. The signs are not good. And so we have asked the Peace Council to be more proactive and not reactive.
Well, the National Peace Council assured of working out modalities to address the NDC's concerns, but also assured government will be made to sign the document.
It means the beginning of a very important things for us to do, to ensure that the stakeholders who have signed, those who are committed, who have been assigned responsibilities, do what is expected of them. And it gives us opportunity to start monitoring and also engaging them.
But how soon do we expect the implementation of the 22 recommendations as you have put across?
As soon as possible.
But there are concerns about government failing to, assent to this document. For Peace Council, what has been the effort being made?
We will inform the government about concerns that they have expressed. But I don't think that the government is saying that they are not committed to it.
But it's been months. Have you made any attempt to get government?
My friend, I've told you that we will consult the government and inform them in respect of the concerns they have expressed.
We can now hear from Professor Kwesi Ainen, who argues that government's inability to sign the document will render the roadmap useless.
Now, part of the challenges for this signing and the eventual compliance is that the National Peace Council itself doesn't have the capacity and the strength to elicit compliance and to demand from the signatories to behave well.
But the argument is that, this whole event and this whole ceremony perhaps might be a mirage.
Well, if politics is about asking for the mandate to serve your people, then probably it should not be seen as a mirage. Okay? Okay? So there should be no excessive optimism around the signing itself. Because there were a couple of critical steps that we also overlooked or we didn't do at all.
But Doc, finally, would you say that it's quite surprising that government is yet to assent to this document?
Well, if government doesn't assent to the document, then the document is not worth the paper it has been signed on.
Because that's a concern the NDC has raised and the Peace Council admitted.
Well, I think they raised this concern right from the word go, so yeah. So that's why I'm saying that there should be limited optimism and that truly, if the initiator of the process itself is unwilling to sign, I would have thought that locating Ghana as the fulcrum around which this process revolves, that government would have signed first to indicate its willingness as the stronger party in this contestation for power and also controlling the tools of violence. Now look, I want to show goodwill So I have signed before, and I think that would have gone a long way to assuage some of the fears and the worries. But it's never too late, and I'm sure the Peace Council will engage government to sign, because it will truly be a victory for all of us. And then the compliance comes in.
But was the delay even necessary at all?
Absolutely not. From where I stand, absolutely not.
And of course, this is your election headquarters. The majority leader, Osache Mensah, has accused the minority in parliament of dishonesty over claims that the EC is not ready to conduct the upcoming voter registration exercise for this year's presidential and parliamentary elections. Yesterday, the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, after meeting the officials of the EC at a special budgets committee meeting, questioned the EC's readiness for the upcoming national exercise and also accused them of attempting to disenfranchise some voters through the registration. Osache Mensah accused the minority of twisting facts presented by the Commission to suit their interest.
They are facing those polling stations, they are clustering them to do the registration. So they are going to do that for, as he said to us, 6 days. And after 6 days, they will move to another cluster. Another 6 days, 6 days, 6 days times 4 would then cover the entirety of the polling stations that we have. So it's like they would have visited every polling station, more or less. That's what it means. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't know his own and the minority leader's understanding of this. But he said to us that that is it. And we've not had any registration in this country where registration devices have been posted to every single registration center at the same time. Give me one example of a registration exercise that we have had in this country that we have undergone that exercise. So please, let's not throw dust into the eyes of the general public.
Now, Chairman Sabonsu also claims that the current EC officials are making huge savings through the purchases of new systems, contrary to views expressed by the minority.
Charlotte Osei Commission indicated to us in 2016 that the data center needed to be completely refurbished because the system had about expired. They're going to do refurbishment. They've entered into a contract, not Charlotte Osei, but Afarijan had entered into a contract with the people who built the center. And every year, the cost of refurbishment was $4 million from 2012 to 2018. $4 million. Here we have a new commission that is reconstructing a new center at a cost of $6.1 million. And he says there's no justification. Clearly, it should tell us what kind of, should I say, racketeering that was going on there. $4 million to refurbish a system, and a new one is going to cost us $6.1 million, and you say there's no justification for that. And indeed, maintenance built into it is about $1.3 million. So in total, it's $7.4 million for 3 years, including maintenance. When the cost of refurbishing the old system is costing this country $4 million every year, there's no justification. If this is not sufficient justification to him, then I don't know what else we can be talking about.
And you're watching Joynews Prime with me, Ernest. Now, PM Express tonight, faces on PM Express tonight, the campaign manager of the NPP for the 2020 elections, Peter McMahon, is targeting a 1.5 million margin victory for the NPP in the upcoming elections. Speaking on a yet-to-be-aired interview tonight, Mr. McMahon told Aisha Ibrahim the party also seeks to increase its parliamentary seats to 185.
Why is it that in 2016, the NDC primaries, they went with a register that elected Mahama with over 90-something%. But when they were coming into 2020 elections, they changed the register.
Those are internal matters. If the NPP
NPP decides to change their constitution or they want to change the register, that is none of our business.
It is our business. Charity begins from home. You, in your own home, you've changed your register.
Okay.
And you think in Ghana we cannot change our register.
What target are you setting for yourself in the 2020 elections?
1.5 million.
That's an ambitious figure.
I'm an ambitious man. And Nana Akufo-Addo is an ambitious president.
1.5 million?
Yes. And 185 seats in parliament, which is 66%. 66%, so that when we table our bills in parliament, that requires 2/3. We'll be able to push it through for the good of the country.
And the full interview airs at 9 p.m. here on the Joynews channel. You don't want to miss that. Now, spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Ayman Shaibu, has described as immoral and unethical subtle preparation of the minds of the youth by political actors for violence during the upcoming elections. He's therefore called on the Zungos and the Ghanaian people to reject any mindset that accepts violence as the means of political expression. He was speaking at a media encounter organized by the Light Foundation, a civil society organization in the peace-building process of the country.
Our country has been in terrible tension. There's no election in this country that we have engaged in, the pre-election, we have not seen terrible tension. And the current one in which we are waiting for is no exception. My worry currently is what I see as the preparation of the minds of our young people for violence during this election. It's obvious from the public statements we've had, in the light of the ongoing debate about the compilation of the new voters register. The subject of the voters register is not the subject of my discussion, but our response and public statements by political actors portends danger for our country. It appears to me our young people are being prepared for action. But we as Muslims need to talk to ourselves, because whether we like it or not, our community has been seen as a supply source of political violence. Our vulnerability is being exploited by politicians in our country. And I think that we must make this one strong in the minds of our people, that we reject, and I say strongly, we reject any mindset that seeks or that accepts violence as a means of political expression. Our country must reject this, and we must speak against this with the strongest of voice.
Founder of Light Foundation, Sheikh Abubakar Ali Napari, said monitoring work they have carried out reveals heightened political climate in parts of the country ahead of the elections.
We could see the tension from far. The wind is very hot from far. So, and we have one Ghana, and Ghana belongs to us. What are we doing to make sure that we had peaceful and successful election, so that at least people can go? I mean, election is not about do and die, and then the right thing must be done. And if we see anything that going wrong, that can jeopardize the peace that we are enjoying, we all need to collaborate and then collectively stand up and then speak against it.
We sit on this couch when we are going to elections, because no one is able to guess or photo the outcome. Whether at the end the country is going to remain in one piece.
And don't forget that for everything election, this is the place to be. We are your election headquarters. absolutely nothing wrong if the Electoral Commission decides not to use the NIA database. That's according to the Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority, Professor Kenneth Tefa. The professor was speaking earlier today at a press conference to provide some information on the ongoing card collection exercise and mop-up registration, which will begin tomorrow. Professor Kenneth Tefa said it was well within the rights of the EC to choose whether or not to use the database of the NIA.
The Electoral Commission is at liberty to use or not to use. And if the Electoral Commission elects not to use, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that it's a decision that the Electoral Commission can make. On a personal level, I'll be hopeful that in future we will reach a destination where the National Identity Register and the Ghana card are both of such a stature and possess such credibility and resilience and all that is wonderful, that institutions and individuals would rather gravitate towards its use than the other way around. For now, if because of the exigencies of the situation and the imperatives that within which the Electoral Commission has to operate, it has made a decision not to use the NIA database. I have no view on that at all. I think it's fine.
He further denied having knowledge of foreigners who may have successfully registered as citizens for the Ghana card.
Now, I do not know that foreigners registered during the mass registration exercise. I do know that there are challenges, and we gave the number of persons whose application for enrollment onto the National Identity Register and Ghana card have been challenged, and that is 250 people. But it does not mean, because these have not been investigated and adjudicated, it is the persons who are suspected to have attempted to get a Ghana card whilst they are foreigners. We will have that information after the challenge processes have been gone through. We do know, however, anecdotally, that some foreigners attempted to register and some fled. For example, at Abusokrai, there were 2 Nigerians who tried to register, and when the police attempted to arrest them, they fled. That sort of situation, a couple of them have come to attention, but actual successful registration of foreigners, I do not have that information.
Meanwhile, the NIA will begin registration in the eastern region and other parts of the country where the initiative was put on hold following the outbreak of COVID-19.
Begins tomorrow with the concurrent registration, mass registration in Upper East and Upper West. That is beginning on the 18th of June and ending on the 3rd of July. And this will be happening concurrently with the continuation of the mass registration exercise in the eastern region, which is also starting tomorrow. The plan is to move to the northern, to the northeast, Savannah, central, western, western north, Volta, Oti, Ashanti, Greater Accra, Bono East, and Ahafo. In clusters, not necessarily singly, but zoned, so that by the 4th of September 2020, we would have completed the entire country.
Let's go to the courts now, because the Supreme Court is being asked to stop the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, from commemorating December 31. This is the day in 1981 that the constitutionally elected government of Dr. Hilal Imam was ousted in a coup led by Jerry John Rawlings. Ghanaian-based lawyer in the U.S., Professor Stephen Kwekwasari, says the continued celebration of the day is an affront to the letter and spirit of the 1992 Constitution, since it frowns upon coups. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
The Revolutionary Council, during our short stay in power, have demonstrated openly what many people had only suspected before, namely that the holding
This was in September 1979. He had in 4 months led the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council carry out what was termed a house cleaning exercise. This had seen the killing of some top military officers who had participated in previous coups. Mr. Rawlings will strike again 27 months later.
Without the true economic power lying in the hands of the people of this country.
He will form and lead the Provisional National Defense Council that will hold on to power till 1993, when the NDC was elected to usher Ghana into a new republic. The party traces its roots to the PNDC and marked June 4 and 31st December as important events in the life of the nation. The Supreme Court in 1993, however, held that December 31 could not be commemorated as a public holiday or marked using state funds. The day has, however, been consistently marked by the NDC with a commemoration event, often heralded with former President Rawlings delivering a keynote address. The last of such events was held at Winneba last year. Professor Asari wants this to stop. He wants a declaration that the celebration in a public forum is inconsistent with or in contravention of the letter and spirit of the 1992 Constitution. He wants the NDC to be ordered or directed to cease and desist from such celebration. Professor Asari is unhappy that the NDC and the Attorney General defendants in the case failed to respond to his writ, even though he filed it on February 20. He contends the party had 14 days to file a response, but has simply refused or failed to do so. His lawyers urge the court to adopt and grant the reliefs he's requesting. The NDC and the AG's office have since entered an appearance asking the court to grant them more time to file a response. The court granted this request as it struck out the request by Professor Asari asking that his reliefs be granted. The case has been adjourned indefinitely.
Now let's go back to the earlier story where 2 suspected incidents of rape and murder of women within 1 month at the Kubiase in the Adjacent municipality of the Ashanti region has left residents in fear and rage. My colleague Nana Sensu-Mensah has the rest of the story.
Relatives of the deceased in Monday's attack say some criminals may be responsible for Abner's death. Tenants in her house say they were curious to find out why she had failed and usually to take her turn to sweep the compound in the morning. They checked in her room only to find her lifeless on her bed.
So this whole area is now a crime scene zone. This whole place. This is the room of the deceased, 24-year-old Abner Intinua. She was fast asleep in this room, but the next day she was found dead in her room with the windows opened but the door was locked.
Some inhabitants give details.
It was her turn to sweep, but she was still asleep. So I went to check on her in her room and realized she was stiff and not responding to my calls.
Sister Lodi Kakasa is here, and yes, my banner when you're now when you're
One lady came to call me that Mabna was not responding, so I barged into her room and saw she was half naked and her legs were opened. Though family awaits autopsy reports to know the real cause of death, some relatives and others point to foul play.
Mabna is my granddaughter. This rape and murder issue has become prevalent. Similar incidents happened not long ago. I'm pleading to government, please come to our aid.
The Their position is justified by an earlier case of alleged rape of a young woman in her own room. The victim recounts her ordeal to Live News.
At about 10:30 p.m., I was resting on my bed and watching TV at the same time. All I saw was someone bounced on me and held my neck.
Jesus. Jesus man kabshi bio na nipa ko ne tane me etane me no odi miti no eto me pa no so na me ni peduade da fo na wa so me na omia me kon sa ti me pete me sane me nine je say me hu nia me nye me tete
so tight I couldn't breathe. So we struggled for a while and I passed out. So when I regained consciousness, I realized he had raped me.
So yeah, me dia so me hu she ron se me dawo. Inti be kakra ni mu no me hu ne ya me nitie no na me da ho me tumi nya hwe se ma ye memre se ma to mum by force. Aha, zata na me sorry ya me ko tu me get me na me ba no. Na me tia ni spam so. Si me peja me na me de me saka me na asem say ni papa ni spam ayde eguo na me sensu na me de call room ase me zi me saka ma se me hu so bi ni miada oni miada se sata ma be da na me nhye
Enraged young men in the community are calling on authorities to assist them form community watch committee to provide patrol services to ward off criminals.
You
want authorities to deploy security personnel to assist us, the young men, to form the watchdog to patrol the whole community to fight this canker. Police at a Jesu Divisional Command are reluctant to draw conclusions until the outcome of autopsy as part of investigations. Nana Asansumensa reporting.
It's now time for some more business news.
Yes, Ernest, we have more business news for you. And if you just join us, my name is Sandra and I'm anchoring from home tonight. In our first story, in the first part of business, the Maritime and Dock Workers Union and the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority, GPHA, are demanding immediate implementation of a 20% container deal signed on November 12, 2019. The group says failure on the part of the Meridian Port Services to honor this deal could lead to massive revenue and job losses and a potential collapse of the once vibrant Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority. Right, so I have the General Secretary of the Maritime and Dock Workers Union, Daniel Owusu-Kranti, via Zoom for more on this development. Thanks so much for your time this evening, Mr. Owusu-Kranti.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. So your union actively kicked against an agreement in 2015 that granted an exclusive right to MPS to handle almost all container and cargo businesses at the Tamale ports based on revenue losses. And subsequently, an agreement was reached in 2019 for the GPHA to handle 20% of container businesses at the port. Why has implementation delayed?
Yeah, thank you very much. Implementation has delayed because the Meridian Port Service, which has been the beneficiary of the Terminal 3 operations, which you rightly indicated was signed in 2015, June 2015, they are almost taking over the whole container business. And as you may know, in the port business now, the container business is the most lucrative part of the whole maritime business. And if we give one company the right to operate the whole container business, then you are actually denying a company like GPHA, which is also the regulator and the landlord, from getting money or huge revenues from container business. And that translates into clear reduction of GPHA's fortunes. And the results, as GPHA indicated, some time ago, that was last year, through the analysis, the result will be job losses. And if we don't take care, over 1,000 workers will lose their jobs. And I must indicate that GPHA, yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
Right, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I must indicate that GPHA performs very huge social and economic functions for our country. It provides job opportunity for many, many people. It supports companies like PSC Tama Shipyard, to date, and there are opportunities for training for young people, which other companies do not provide such benefits. Social economic. So if GPHA runs into economic crisis, then the nation would actually suffer for it.
Interesting. So it looks like there's a lot of confusion currently at the port. Give us a sense of how container cargo businesses are being handled under the current circumstance.
Under the current circumstance, with the 2015 agreement, as we have indicated, all the container business went to the MPS Terminal 3. And under an agreement which we have described as a very good example of a bad agreement, and if you look at the way the agreement has been structured, it did not go through what we can describe as international competitive bidding. These are things that we had indicated in our previous campaigns. And if we continue this way, for GPHA to lose the container business, and also there's also another problem with the reefer container business. GPHA has constructed and invested in a reefer container terminal for some strange arrangement, that we cannot even understand. Even though the reefer container business is not part of the agreement, it is MPS that is controlling that business now.
Right.
So GPHA is losing the reefer container business and also losing the real container business to the port of Tema.
Okay, so I'm sure you've been engaging them. What have they been telling you with difficulties to come to some amicable sort of agreement on how to go ahead? I know they are proposing, I think, 4 years, and you want 10 years period for how the 20% should be handled at the port. Again, away from that also, the whole idea is to, protect jobs and also revenue. Do you know how much this impact is having on revenue and jobs as we speak?
To cut a long story short, when we started our campaign in 2019, November 12th, the shareholders of MPS met in Dubai. We normally call it Dubai Agreement, and decided that, resulting from the campaigns and also the kind of presentations that GPHA management had made in terms of job losses and revenue losses that relates to job losses, the shareholders agreed in Dubai that they will grant 20% container business to GPHA.
All right.
Of course, the MPS has a deeper draft. That big vessels can go there, can go to Terminal 3, and then the smaller vessels relatively smaller vessels can come to GPHA in terms of Terminal 2. When they came to Ghana to operationalize the agreement that had been reached in Dubai, then MPS developed a stance that it is going to implement the 20% in the matter of 4 years. That is the first year 20%, the second year 20%, the third year 15%, and then the fourth year 10%. And we are saying that the 4 years, what we described as a conditional implementation of the 20%, we cannot get GPHA out of its revenue crisis, and that it is just a way of postponing the problems. So if GPHA wears the vessels, container vessels for 4 years, on reducing balance of 20% the first year, 20% the second year, and then reducing to 15% the third year and 10% the fourth year, we don't think that this is going to help. There's consecutive period.
Okay, please hold it there for me. Hold on for me, Mr. Usukranting. The Minister of Transport, Kweku Isiama, was at the Tema Port yesterday, where he indicated that the ministry is working out an agreement with GPHA and will come out with a resolution next week. Let's listen to him and I'll come back to you.
GPHA 20%. I think that GPHA is handling 20%, and so far as government is concerned, that is the position of government. Government position hasn't changed so far as our discussion with MPS is concerned. And so far far as we are concerned, we have an understanding of DPHA handling 20%. That is why government still stands by it. Government position has not changed. Nothing. Government position has not changed. I am told that my information is that the last time they went to board this matter came, they discussed it the last 3 days, last week, and they said that they should finish all the documentation. So the far government is concerned, the issue of 20% hasn't changed, and it continues to be 20%. We hope that whatever assurance I have given you as government, our position
So you had the minister there. What do you make of his submission, and are you okay with what he's been saying? Next week you get some sort of agreement on the way forward.
Yeah, let me say that our campaign has paid off, in the sense that after the minister made this verbal promise, as of now, as I speak today, I am privy to a letter that has been written, to us, cataloging some of the things, the assurances that the minister gave. And also, we will also be privy to a letter from the Flagstaff House, confirming that government is committed, the government of Ghana, is committed to ensuring that the 20% container business, or the agreement that was reached in Dubai, would run for the exclusivity period, which is 10 years. And this is something I'm talking about in terms of this very evening, which confirms some of the things that the Minister of Transport had said.
Right. So I'm sure we're waiting to see what comes up next week, but I want to say a big thank you for joining me tonight on Business. Mr. Daniel Owusu-Koranten is the General Secretary of the Maritime and Dock Workers Union of the Trades Union Congress, Ghana. We move away from that. And if you want to buy gold today, you can buy it around $1,727.06 an ounce. The commodity news is up next. I'll be off for business tonight with me, Sandra Esinam Afeni. You can log on to myjoyonline.com/business for more business news updates. We do the same time tomorrow. And remember, I'm anchoring from home, or I anchored from home today. And then I see Oreku Ampufu standing by for the sports bit. Hi, Oreku. All right, thanks so much for watching.
And we'll go back to Oreku for another dose of sports. Hello, Oreku. What do you have for us, Doza?
Hi, it's time for the second part of sports, as you rightly stated. And we do start off with stories relating to the Ghana FA and the suspended season. Now, President of the association, Keto Kreku, has said that the lack of football activities in the country is due to lack of money. Now, the FA tabled a proposal to government for a permission to resume football activities, but the state did not ease restriction on their sport. Keto Kreku believes that if the association had money, they would have met all the requirements to be granted permission.
When government eased restrictions, football was one of the sporting disciplines that the state insisted must not return to training. This has put fear in many people who believed that the return of Ghana football following its suspension due to COVID-19 would not be anytime soon. President of the Ghana Football Association, Kurt Edwin Simeon Okrako, has said that the lack of football activities in the country is due to lack of finances.
I think that there's quite a number of challenging areas, so to say. Obviously, it all comes down to money, because if you want to embark on an elaborate educational campaign, it's money. If you have to
get access to the PPEs, it's money, okay? Of course, clubs will have to play or may have to play behind closed doors. It means money will be lost. The National Sports Authority will have to prepare the facilities for us because some of the clubs use their facilities. There's a question about money, etc., etc. So it is money. Money plays a big part. That's the gospel truth. The sports economy or the football economy is very small. It's not very, very robust. And therefore, it's a challenging period where we have to really, really think outside the box, be very fair in our thinking process, and ensure that the best decision is taken for Ghana.
The GFA president added that people within the football community must think outside the box in order to ensure that the sport is well funded.
Assuming that the law allows us to even assess the 500,000 from the FIFA operational fund and the 200,000 from CAF, it will still not be enough to take care of our clubs adequately and then to also manage the affairs of the Football Association. Okay, so it's a very, very challenging period. The truth of the matter is that we have to think outside the box to find other ways of funding football activities in this country, because clearly Football Association of Ghana has heavily relied on the FIFA support and the CAF support, which clearly is inadequate. Okay, so we need to find ways to develop our products in a way that will attract the interest of corporate Ghana, so we can have excess funding to effectively and sufficiently take care of our football clubs and our stakeholders.
The Ghana Football Association is courting the government to extend its 1 billion Ghana cedis stimulus package meant for small and medium-scale enterprises. Football.
Now, this season's Champions League and Europa League competitions will be completed in August, with the final 8 tournaments in Lisbon, Portugal, and in cities across Germany. The Women's Champions League will also be a knockout tournament in northern Spain between 21st to the 30th of August. Competitions were suspended in March because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the Champions League will resume with the second leg of the remaining last 16 games played on 7th and 8th August. Manchester City have to yet play at home against Real Madrid. Chelsea are away to Bayern Munich. Juventus are home to Lyon, and Napoli are at Barcelona. UEFA said that it has decided whether to host the matches at the home grounds or whether it should be at a neutral venue. It hasn't decided that yet, but the subsequent knockout rounds will be a single leg affair, which will be hosted in Lisbon between the 12th of August to 23rd of August. And the final is scheduled for 23rd of August in the Portuguese capital, Istanbul. Originally was appointed to host the 2020 final, but will now host the 2021 final. Concerning the Europa League, which will resume on 10th August, the remaining last 16 games will be played from August 5th to 6th. Now, before I do go, it's time to recap on some of the latest scores in the big games across Europe. And Manchester City are currently beating Arsenal by 2-0. David Luiz red card, goals from Sterling and Kevin De Bruyne. And in the Coppa Italia final, Juventus are currently being held by Napoli 0-0. Heading to 90 minutes, it looks as if penalties would be used to decide who would be winning the Coppa Italia this season. But that wraps it up for the sports segment. My name is Oreku Ampofo, and do remember to stay safe and stay home.
Thank you very much for bringing us sports. But on the Europa League, though, I'm wondering, are they going to be playing in empty stadiums like you're seeing in Germany with the Bundesliga?
Yeah, the matches are being played behind closed doors, but there are artificial fans, providing the ambience and all that.
Thank you very much for bringing us the latest in sports. Now, Johnny's agenda this week is on worsening conditions on roads in the country as the rain set in. In today's episode, Joynews editor Fresh Mix takes us to his community, Mile 7, where many potholes on the roads there is causing residents to develop health problems as well as high vehicle maintenance costs. Apologies, we want to take a break now. We'll bring that story to you subsequently. Thanks for staying with us here on Joynews Prime. Let's bring you Joynews agenda today. And Joynews editor Fred Smith takes us to his community, Mile 7, and he tells the story of the worsening condition of roads there.
Welcome to Mile 7, a community in the North municipality of the Greater Accra region. This community is full of life, a community where talent abounds, producing many national icons. But it is also a community in which many small businesses are thriving. This requires movement of vehicles.
For 6 years, this is where I have called home. A fun community, many loving people, and one of the best sceneries you can find anywhere in the world. But like many other communities, it is also bedeviled with problems, with bad roads topping the list.
Well, some of the roads in this community are not that bad, but with potholes like you can see here, it becomes very difficult to think that there are some good roads at all.
Plying through the roads at Mile 7 is a daily struggle, as some residents say the bump and grind leave them with high vehicle maintenance costs and health problems.
Shocks 2 times.
I've had my vehicle break down here twice, in this very pothole. Our leaders don't fear God, and therefore don't have their people at heart. I won't even vote anymore. This road was constructed about 3 months ago, and already you can see the extent of damage. Successive governments have failed to ensure that contractors are doing quality work. We end up spending all our income on spare parts.
We experience flooding anytime it rains. Sometimes the flood waters enter our shops. Something must be done about it.
The road is no good, so the government can make the road. Oh, let my spinal cord, my backbone, or the pain. Let the shocks and some things they stop for the motor and body. So I'll make the can do and give us.
The road is not good. The drain is too small, and this results in spillage each time it rains. The government should come to our aid.
Several of such depressions on Mile 7 roads mean motorists have to always drive with extreme care, unsure of where the next pothole is, something that puts other road users at risk of being knocked down. At the Kingsby roundabout, some residents volunteered to fill the potholes after realizing they were too deep. But that is still not enough to give anyone a comfortable ride.
Let me now take you to the Kotoka International Airport. My colleague Latif Idris is there. We understand some Ghanaians who are stranded abroad in the UK specifically are returning tonight. Latif, what can you tell us briefly?
Ernest, what I can tell you is that this is the first batch of returnees from the UK. As we have it now, we have 218 adults and 9 infants. So, we are looking at 227 people coming in from the UK. We also understand that all of them have booked their hotels, and so right after the screening, which is ongoing here at Terminal 3, they would all be taken to their various hotels where they will self-isolate or quarantine for not less than 14 days before a test is again conducted to ascertain whether they have COVID-19 or not, and then they can then integrate into society.
And of course, we'll be following that process. Latif Idris, he'll be interacting with all those arriving now at the Kotoka International Airport. But that'll be it for our program tonight. Many thanks for your company. That's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. I'm Ernest Mino. PM Express is next. Aisha Ibrahim speaks to the campaign chairman of the NPP. Stay tuned in.